12 Spine-Chilling Airline Nightmares, discover the cursed secrets of haunted flights exposed. Sarah's heart raced as she stood at the edge of Maplewood International Airport's empty terminal. The usual hum of arrivals had become an oppressive silence, a dreadful echo of past flights. Shadows lurked in the corners, draping everything in unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was lurking behind every gate, in every flickering light. What had started as whispers among her coworkers now felt like a web of fear tightening around her, each story about the cursed Flight 1978 feeding into a growing dread that gnawed at her sanity. Just urban myths, her coworkers dismissed. But those myths fed her nightmares, dark figures whispering a chilling chorus of names, each one a reminder of the missing passengers who slipped through the cracks. The deeper she dug, the more those stories echoed in her head, disappearances cloaked in mystery, passengers vanishing as if they were never there at all. The weight of it all pressed down on her, making her skin crawl. She could almost hear the haunting laughter of children, their voices twisted into something terrifying that echoed relentlessly in the hollow terminal point. One night, as she stared bleary-eyed at endless reports, a cold sweat broke over her. The airport's record showed a pattern: each month a flight would vanish, leaving behind puzzled families and frantic searches. And then the Anderson family went missing right before their vacation. Their friendly faces, once so familiar, now haunted her every thought. The air turned electric, community chatter shifted from happy greetings to furtive whispers. Each glance from her neighbors felt heavy with judgment, suspicion swirling like a storm around her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night's chill crept deeper into her bones as she scoured through the airport's archives, piecing together a fractured history. Whispers of passengers' eerie connections to Flight 1978 clawed at her. She could almost see their faces, hear their voices, a shuddering connection that chilled her heart. The emptiness of the terminal became a nightmarish playground, the air dense with unspoken truths. Her instincts prickled with the knowledge that she wasn't alone, that eyes were watching, waiting for her to slip. The sense of dread sank deeper when she discovered that shadows were indeed lingering. A figure had been following her, ever so quietly, lurking just outside her line of sight. Her heart raced at the thought of Ethan sleeping soundly at home, blissfully unaware of the nightmare surrounding them. Darkness became a tangible force, whispering threats of danger, promising devastation if she didn't tread carefully. Just as the pieces of the mystery began to fit together, a sudden chill swept through the terminal, freezing her blood. An unknown number flashed on her phone. You should have stayed away from Flight 1978. Your son is in danger. The walls of her reality crumbled, drawing her into a pit of uncertainty. Trust had turned into suspicion, and she could feel the grip of terror tightening around her. Who could she rely on now? As she turned to leave, the echo of her own footsteps became a harbinger of doom, leaving her breathless and terrified. What lay ahead was a web of secrets that threatened to ensnare everything she held dear. Sarah stumbled through the dark terminal, the soles of her shoes whispering against the polished floor. Each breath felt laborious, each heartbeat a countdown to an unseen horror. The message on her phone lingered in her mind, an icy tendril wrapping around her thoughts. Your son is in danger. She clutched the phone tightly, her knuckles white with tension. The terminal loomed around her, its shadows shifting and stretching as if alive. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting ghostly patterns that danced like restless spirits. She turned her head, convinced she would find that figure lurking, eyes fixed on her. But the space remained empty, devoid of life. Ethan, she whispered, choking on the name. How could anyone think it was just a myth when she felt the fear clawing at her throat? A flight had vanished without a trace, and each incident haunted her like a curse, entwining the history of this place with her very own life. As she approached Gate 12, the place where Flight 1978 had last departed, the air thickened, almost suffocating. Memories floated like dust motes around her laughter, farewells, hopes. She could picture the excited passengers boarding, blissfully unaware of the darkness seeping through the cracks. It clung to her skin now, a murky fog creeping into her thoughts. Suddenly, a sound jolted her from her spiraling thoughts. A child's laughter echoed, high-pitched and twisted, swirling from the depths of the terminal. The laughter sent shivers down her spine, awakening deep-seated fears that she had tried to bury. The stories whispered of children lost, their giggles replaced by anguished cries in the silence of the night. "Stay away!" she shouted into the void, a desperate warning to the darkness. Yet her voice faltered and fell, swallowed by the encroaching shadows. She dared to step closer, compelled by a mix of dread and the need for answers. The laughter grew louder, mingling with the sound of footsteps, her own heart racing in time with the ghostly rhythm. She scanned her surroundings. Was it real? Or just a haunting echo meant to lure her deeper into the abyss? At that moment, she spotted something in the dim light, a small object half buried under a seat. Fear clawed at her throat as she edged toward it, the laughter turning to a faint sob. It was a doll, its porcelain face cracked and grimy, a small pink dress tattered and worn. A chill swept through her as she picked it up, her fingers brushing against its icy surface. The eyes seemed to blink, alive with a sorrowful depth that left her breathless. Just as she turned to leave, an image flashed in her mind. Ethan, smiling bright under the sun, his laughter ringed with innocence. She thought of that unknown call and the implication of danger. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, voice cracking in desperation. A silence fell heavy in the air. The laughter stopped, abruptly replaced by a rattling in the distance, like chains dragging across the ground. And then came a whisper, chilling and familiar, wrapping around her with a promise of despair. "Join us," it murmured, and the temperature plummeted, icy fingers gripping her heart. In that moment, she realized she was no longer merely investigating a curse, she had been drawn into it, ensnared in the same trap that had claimed countless others. The shadows closed in, and dread coiled tightly around her. Was this the price of knowledge? An overwhelming fear rushed through her. What if she was too late to save Ethan? The echo of the whisper faded, but it left behind a haunting question, one every mother fears: what happens when you can't escape the darkness that seeks to claim you? Sarah felt the icy grip of dread tighten around her chest. She spun, eyes darting in every direction, desperate for a sign, any sign of her son. The terminal felt alive, a predator lurking beneath the veneer of steel and glass. The air was thick, a suffocating weight that amplified every breath she took. "Ethan!" she cried, her voice trembling but insistent. The echoes of her plea ricocheted off the walls, swallowed by the encroaching shadows. Her heart drummed in her ears. The last message flashed again in her mind, and she questioned every second. She hesitated. With a rustle, the doll fell from her grasp. It hit the floor with a soft thud, rolling just out of reach. Sarah seized the moment to flee from the darkness that seemed to pulse closer. The flickering lights cast distorted shapes that danced across her vision. There was no time to hazard a glance back. She couldn't let herself be drawn to the specter that haunted this dreadful place. Her feet pounded against the cold marble, each step echoing her anxiety. A sudden chill rushed past her, a gust of wind that swept through the terminal, louder than before. Shadows twisted along the walls, pulling her attention away from her path. A figure emerged, cloaked in shadow. It stood motionless, a dark silhouette melded into the darkness, its eyes two burning orbs. "Help us," it rasped, voice slithering into her mind. Panic swelled within her, choking out her breath. The sorrow in that plea pulled at her heartstrings, igniting a desperate need to understand. But it was too close to the surface, too powerful. She couldn't resist the urge to run. "Leave me alone!" she screamed, charging forward into the heart of the terminal. The laughter returned, hollow and cold, echoing all around her. Was it real? Could it be the echoes of the lost souls trapped here? For a fleeting moment, she paused. A mirror reflected her face as she rushed by, eyes wide, skin pale, heart racing. The familiar reflection morphed into something grotesque. Jagged teeth emerged in a twisted grin. A chilling realization hit, it wasn't just her fears manifesting. It was them, the lost souls of the vanished passengers. They wanted to welcome her into the darkness. Ethan! She shouted again, a plea that shattered the silence like glass. If she could find him, she could escape this nightmare. She rounded a corner, the dimly lit corridor stretching infinitely, disappearing into blackness. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, yet something pushed her forward. The sobs morphed back into laughter, a pulsating song that tantalized, promising answers and merciless pain. She was not alone, the shadows beckoned, she stumbled into a waiting area, lined with empty seats. The tension was palpable, each breath felt electric in the stale air. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a small child running through the rows, laughter blending with the darkness and calling her name. It couldn't be Ethan. She cried, dread sinking into her bones as she chased after the blur. He slipped through a doorway marked staff only, leading into madness. With a surge of adrenaline, she burst through, heart pounding. The corridor echoed eerily with every step. Lights flickered, shadows danced. Just then, a painted face emerged from the darkness, a jarring mix of sweetness and terror. Above the flickering lights, the distorted figure grinned, eyes glistening with malice. "Your turn to join the family," it sang. As Sarah stumbled backward, the whispers crescendoed, filling the space with anguished cries mingled with giggles, pulling her under. What she thought was pursuit turned ravenous, devouring her hope. In that moment of horror, she wondered, could she save Ethan? Or was she merely another lost soul, destined to become the echoed voice in the terminal of shadows? Just then, a flash of light caught her attention, illuminating a door carved into the wall. Just beyond it, the laughter faded. The shadows shivered as she took a hesitant step toward the entrance. Could it be her escape? Or merely another trap in the labyrinth of terror? Sarah grasped the doorknob, its cold metal biting into her skin. Her heart raced, pounding with the rhythm of panic. She pushed the door open, a creaking sound echoing around her. The air that escaped from within felt cooler and carried a strange, distant melody that tugged at her sanity. On the other side, darkness wove itself into thick curtains, wrapping itself tightly around the edges of the room. She stepped inside, feeling the shadows envelop her like a shroud. The door slammed shut behind her with a deafening thud. It felt like a prison. "Ethan?" She called again, but her voice came out small and shaky. The silence was oppressive, heavier than before. Glimmers of light danced in the corners, flickering like fireflies. They beckoned her deeper into the room. A lone chair stood in the center, an old, cracked leather seat, its upholstery peeling away like frightened skin. Suddenly, a soft giggle broke through the silence. "Mommy, over here." The voice was sweet yet trapped, caught in a web of desperation. It felt so familiar, echoing Ethan's laughter. Her breath hitched. "Ethan." Rushing towards the sound, she stumbled over something in the dark, a toy, his toy, the plush dinosaur he always carried. The once vibrant colors were now faded, its little button eyes dull and lifeless. As she picked it up, a wave of nausea coursed through her. Laughter erupted again, vibrating with haunting intensity. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. "Please, stop." Somewhere in that darkness, unseen figures began to emerge. Shadows morphed into vague shapes, faces twisted in silent screams, fingers pointing at her in accusation. Hands of the lost, desperately reaching out from the edges of nowhere. "Join us." They wailed, the voices intertwining, pulling at her sanity. "Forever with us." Sarah stumbled back against the wall, her pulse hammering wildly in her ears, drowning out their cries. The laughter shifted, turning into gasps of excitement that sucked her in. Every instinct screamed for her to escape, but a morbid curiosity held her captive. Perhaps her son was here. Perhaps he needed her. "Ethan." She shouted, and for a moment, the laughter faded. Silence settled like dust, the kind that blankets abandoned places. But then, a soft whimper echoed from the far end of the room. Sarah's heart lurched. She sprinted toward the sound, desperate and breathless. Within moments she reached an old mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. The glass was smeared, obscuring whatever lay behind it. The whimper came again, weaker this time. It gripped her soul. "Mommy, help me." The voice trembled, a thin thread weaving through the air, pulling her closer. She peered into the mirror, and her own reflection stared back, but it was different. Her eyes seemed hollow, mouth twisted in fear. Beside her, another figure was forming a shadow, inanimate, gray against the glass, growing more defined. It bore a resemblance to her son, but its face twisted into a grin, sharp teeth glistening in the dim light. "Mommy, why did you leave me?" It hissed, echoing with the anguish of the lost. It wasn't Ethan. A cold sweat broke out across her brow. She backed away from the mirror, panic rising again. The laughter returned, louder than before, pushing her toward the brink of madness. There had to be a way out. Somewhere beyond the shadows and laughter was a truth she needed to uncover. Maybe she could save Ethan, or perhaps, she was already too late, but the room was shifting around her, the walls of darkness closing in, and suddenly the laughter transitioned into a cacophony of screams. "Sarah!" A voice pierced through the chaos, familiar and real. It was Ethan. Then a crash echoed, and the walls began to buckle, revealing more shadows, more lost souls eager to claim her. In that moment, Sarah understood the terminal was an endless cycle, an eternal chase, a hunger for souls. Was she running toward salvation or deeper into the abyss? The shadows lurked closer, and with them came a chilling realization that left her breathless. Perhaps some doors were never meant to be opened. Just outside the room, something rattled, a new presence stirred, and she knew it was only a matter of time before the darkness swallowed her whole. What would she sacrifice to save her son? Dread clawed at her throat, the struggle was just beginning. Ethan's name echoed in Sarah's mind as she spun on her heels, the air thick with despair. The room swirled, shadows dancing along the walls like restless spirits, each flicker a reminder of what was at stake. She felt the mirrors chill against her skin, as if it were a portal to everything she feared. "Help me," the voice was insistent, pulling her closer to the mirror again, but the twisted reflection wasn't he, her son. It was a fragment of something lost and dark, its ghastly smile mocking her desperation. The laughter, now a sinister chorus, melded with the cries of the tormented. They reached for her, caressing her with cold fingers that seemed to seep into her skin. "Ethan!" She screamed, no longer just a name but a prayer, a plea that reverberated into the oppressive silence. Suddenly, a heavy thud came from the door. It rattled again, urgency pounding against wood as if it knew someone was trapped inside. Hope sparked in her chest, a flicker of light against the suffocating darkness. "Help! Someone's in here." The laughter faded for a moment, replaced by a low whisper close to her ear. "You shouldn't have come here." A shiver traced her spine as she turned sharply, scanning for the source. Shadows curled around her, lengthening, creeping closer. "Get away from me." She backed up, colliding with the wall, her breath hitching. Each whisper seemed to echo with a chilling truth. She was far from safe. The pounding intensified, threatening to splinter the door. A figure loomed outside, its shadow stretching impossibly large against the door. Was it Ethan? A surge of hope clashed with previously felt dread. "Please. I need to know if it's you." "Mommy, it's not safe. Don't let them in." Ethan's voice wailed through the cracks, raw and urgent. Her heart pounded as another thud sounded, louder this time. The walls trembled. The whispers crescendoed, intertwining with the laughter again, forming a mocking symphony around her. "Join us." Forever they called, their words dripping like poison. Her mind raced. She was separated from her son, trapped in a nightmare, and the only option seemed to be waiting for that door to give way. But this time, she was standing at the edge of a decision that could seal their fates. "Get away from the door!" she shouted, desperate. "I'm coming to help you." But the laughter swelled again. Shadows crawled along the floor, and the air thickened like a fog, wrapping around her ankles. "He doesn't want to leave." The door rattled once more, the figure outside pushing against it with a frantic intensity. The shadows swirling behind her felt alive, hungry for her fear, their whispers now filled with venom. "He could stay with us, he could be ours." The door cracked, revealing splintered wood and moisture dripping down. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice became a clarion call, arresting her heart in painful claws. The darkness behind her stirred, forming into shapes and faces of lost souls, eyes wide with agony and resentment. In that moment, everything shifted. The choice she had to make crystallized. She could turn her back on the souls, on whatever darkness was beckoning, or slip deeper into the abyss to find her son. "Stay back!" she screamed, hands shaking, heart racing. "I want to let you take him." But the shadows surged forward, their laughter transforming into a cacophony of screams, drowning out her thoughts, her fears. As she braced herself against the chaos, she could feel the fabric of reality around her tear. And then, the door burst open. A blinding light spilled into the room, illuminating the horror that surrounded her. But was it salvation? Or had she just unleashed a greater evil? In that blinding moment, the laughter fell silent, anticipation heavy in the air. Sarah's hand hovered over the threshold, paralyzed by both dread and hope. What awaited her on the other side? Was she finally on the verge of rescuing Ethan, or had she just opened a door to something far worse? The light was blinding, but Sarah felt its warmth for just an instant. It illuminated the dark corners of the room, exposing what she had been too terrified to fully see. The faces in the shadows writhed as the blinding light flickered, their twisted features morphing into grotesque masks of despair. Each one held a story, a lost breath, whispering promises and threats. Panic surged through her. "Ethan!" she shouted into the brightness, hoping against hope that her voice would carry through the chaos. She stepped onto the threshold, the warmth creeping in, wrapping around her until the shadows clawed at her from behind, pulling her back. "Don't come any closer." Ethan's warning echoed again. "Please, Mommy. Stay with me," she begged, pushing through the light as her feet moved forward almost without her. But in that moment, the light faltered and the laughter returned, sinister and breathless. The shadows surged towards her, and she stumbled back against the wall, fighting against the seeping darkness. "Come back to us," they hissed, mockery dripping from their whispers. "We'll never let him go." Suddenly, Ethan's face appeared within the brightness. He seemed distorted, flickering like a faulty projection, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy, help me. Don't listen to them. Ethan." She felt tears streaming down her cheeks as her heart threatened to split in two. The shadows clawed at her ankles, weaving their fingers into her skin, their laughter pulsating deeper into her mind. Desperation twisted her insides. She had to decide. She could face the darkness that wanted to consume her, or reach for the flickering light that might save her son. The choice weighed heavily upon her, more agonizing than any torment already visited upon her. "Please." Her voice trembled, the air heavy with a suffocating dread. "I'll do anything. Just let him go." The piercing laughter cut through her plea. "Anything?" It jeered, growing louder as though they were plunging directly into her mind. "Then take his place. Forever." The shadows surged, and the air crackled with electric dread. Ethan's face flickered again, and for a brief moment, he looked more like himself, more solid. "Mom, don't. You can't." he cried, his voice filled with a heart-wrenching intensity. Light and darkness crashed around her, swirling in a maelstrom of pain and hope. She felt the dimension twisting, the essence of the world stretching thin as the darkness fought to pull her down. "I want to let you take him." She screamed again, gathering every shred of strength she had. She pushed against the shadows as they lunged, and the room shook with energy. When she thought she might lose the battle, the familiar warmth surged inside her mother's love, pure and unwavering. With one final push, she lunged toward Ethan's distorted form. "It's me. I love you. I'm coming." But as the shadows closed in, a piercing scream erupted from the deep blackness. The cacophony shattered, and with it, rage broke like waves against the shore, striking the very core of everything she feared. The light flared again, almost blinding in its intensity, but this time it felt real. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in anger and pain. In their retreat, an unexpected vision appeared, an old photograph, yellowing and tattered, of a happy family standing in front of a house that felt familiar. The image flickered violently before her, a moment of peace swallowed by chaos. Was it a clue? Was there something in her past that connected her to this horror? As the darkness reeled, longing filled Sarah's heart. Was the light her path to salvation or a trap leading her further into despair? The echoes beckoned her, merging laughter and cries, begging for her to join them. Standing at the precipice between light and dark, she took a deep breath. What was her next move? And would she have the strength to confront the truth hidden in her past before the darkness took what was left? The light pulsed like a heartbeat, vibrant yet menacing. Each flicker seemed to rip through Sarah, tearing away bits of her sanity, leaving fear in its wake. The twisted faces, the lost souls, let out a chorus of despair, their hands reaching, clawing, wanting, needing. They thrummed against her heart, echoing an ancient anguish that made her shudder. "What do you want from me?" she yelled into the swirling chaos, desperation strangling her voice. But they only laughed, a high-pitched sound that crawled under her skin, settling deep into her bones. Ethan's voice, distant yet close, broke through the cacophony. "You have to remember, Mom. The house you have to remember." The photograph hovered between her and the dark, shimmering with the ghosts of happier times, the laughter of a child, the warmth of home. In that fleeting moment, a shadow flickered to life. It stood at the edge of the light, a specter of someone familiar, yet horrifyingly wrong. It was a reflection of herself, twisted and warped, wearing a smile that dripped malice. "Join us," it whispered, voice smooth as silk but hard as iron. "You belong here. This is your destiny." She recoiled, all instinct screaming for her to run. "No. I want to let you take me." "Not again. Again." The whispers grew loud, a howling wind that clawed at her ears. "You think you can escape your legacy? Your past? You bound us to this place. Come home." The memory tugged at her mind, her childhood home looming like a dark cloud. The laughter of her family had turned hollow, the walls weighed heavy with secrets. She had buried the truth, but it clawed back, gnawing at her resolve. "Ethan needs me," she cried, grasping at the connection she felt with her son. Focusing on him, battled against the shadows that clamored to trap her. "I will not leave him. His cries are nothing. He will forget you," the dark figure rasped, leaning closer. "But you can have power, Sarah. Power beyond measure. Join us." The warmth of the light began to falter, dimming under the weight of despair. It felt like a sinking ship, dragging her deeper into darkness. She had to fight back, to challenge the very fabric of this reality. "Ethan!" she screamed into the swirling void, every syllable ripping from her throat like a lifeline. His image materialized within the light, desperate and frantic. "Mom! Please! Don't let them win. Remember our home. The box in my room." Hope flickered, igniting something dormant within her. The box, it was an old wooden box, the one thing she had locked away and forgotten. The memory crashed back, shadows hiding inside, a treasure of past pain wrapped in love. "I'll find it. I'll find it." Panic turned to resolve, hardening her spirit. She turned towards the deep shadows, armor made of maternal instinct. The laughter exploded again, enraged and vicious. "Foolish woman! You cannot escape. But she was no longer afraid. "Watch me." She plunged into the shadows, every step echoing with defiance. The dark shrieked, recoiling as she fought through, but as she bore down on the vision of her childhood, it began to ripple, warping and twisting as the darkness howled louder. What secret lay buried within the box? Would its contents affirm her plan or plunge her deeper into despair? The shadows slashed at her as she plunged headlong into the darker recesses of her past. Would she find the key to save her son or unleash something far more sinister? The answer hovered, tantalizing yet terrifying, just beyond her reach. What awaited her at the end of this frantic race against time? Would the truth be her salvation, or would it destroy everything she held dear? Darkness enveloped her like a shroud, chilling and thick. Each step forward was a battle against the oppressive weight of fear that pressed down on her chest. The shadows twisted and turned, a living entity wrapping itself around her ankles, dragging her back, threatening to consume her. "Ethan!" she gasped, pushing through the onslaught. "I'm coming. I will find you." Her heart raced, thundering in her ears like a warning drum. The remnants of a childhood echoed in her mind, the laughter that once rang sweetly now twisted into mocking shrieks. Flickering memories of long-forgotten arguments and broken promises clawed at her senses. She reached the doorway to her old room, and it stood like a sentinel looming over her trepidation. The air crackled with a static charge, as if the very walls were alive, breathing, waiting. "The box," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, but as she stepped through the threshold, an oppressive force screamed at her to turn back. The familiar scent of dust mingled with something rancid, stirring her stomach in protest. The walls were stained with time, peeling wallpaper showcasing glimpses of stories better left untold. The room was dark, but she felt the pulsing presence of the past lurking within. "Find it," the shadows hissed, voices slithering around her like 1,000 serpents. "Unleash it." Guided by instinct, she stumbled to the corner where the box used to sit, shoved beneath the ancient dresser, forgotten in the chaos of life's changes. She dropped to her knees, fingers trembling as she felt the cool wood beneath layers of grime. In that moment, panic surged as she wrenched the box free. "Don't do it!" the voices cried, rising to a cacophony of urgency as she lifted the box to meet the dim light that seeped through the cracked window. "Leave it closed. Don't awaken them." Her heart thudded, a warning that battled with the craving for answers. She had to know what lay inside, even as a primal instinct begged her to flee. With shaking hands, she slid the latch and pushed the lid open. It creaked as if it were awakening from a long slumber. Inside, yellowed papers crammed with scribbled memories spilled forth, climbing over each other in a desperate rush. A locket tarnished silver glistened dimly, but it was the smell that hit her like a wave, a bitter, metallic odor reminiscent of despair. Suddenly, a sharp noise made her freeze, a soft scratching, like claws against wood, echoed from the depths of the box. The shadows thickened, closing in around her, whispering, urging her to let go. She felt ice settle in her veins, her breath coming in quick gasps. "Mom!" A frantic voice pierced through the noise, and she turned, finding Ethan's image shimmering, flickering against the shadows. "You have to close it. The box is a gateway." Instinctively, she backed away from the lid, her heart racing as realization began to dawn. This wasn't just a collection of memories, it was a vessel of something darker. Something that was tied to the very darkness she fought against. "Help me." The plea reverberated in her ears, a haunting sound that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Mom, please. You can't let them take you too." Panic turned her stomach inside out. She was teetering on the edge of a precipice, her decisions about to awaken something long buried. The shadows grew more restless and aggressive, writhing in anticipation of release. What if she closed the box? Would she save Ethan? Or if she opened it, would she unleash horrors none could comprehend? The choice weighed down like a heavy stone, pressing against her chest. "Which path will you choose?" the shadows taunted. "You can't change the past, but you can embrace the darkness." As their chilling laughter echoed through the room, Sarah held her breath, torn between love and fear, between truth and oblivion. The lid of the box teetered ominously on the edge. What would she let loose into the world? She had to choose, and fast, but what did she truly know of the darkness that waited inside? Would it be her salvation, or would it snuff out the last remnants of hope? As the air thickened, her world grew smaller, and the shadows morphed into shapes of dread, waiting for her fateful decision. The shadows pulsed like a living thing, pushing close, wrapping around her as if to strangle the breath from her lungs. Sarah's fingers clutched desperately at the edges of the box, the wood cold and unyielding. The whispers grew louder, a frantic storm of voices clawing at her sanity. Open it. Let them in. They howled, an insatiable hunger thrumming through the air. No. She shouted, but her voice felt lost, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Ethan's image flickered again, desperation etched on his face. Mom. Please. You don't understand. Her heart thundered louder. The box, the promise of answers or the seal of her doom, stood in stark contrast to everything she thought she knew. She could feel the weight of regret pressing down, the choices she had made had led her here, to this moment, to this cursed object that thrummed like a heartbeat. Ethan, but the moment hung on a thread, the darkness pressing in closer, every second stretching painfully as she weighed her options. The memories that spilled out of the box seemed to writhe and twist, infused with a life of their own, until the air crackled with unbearable tension. Close it. Trust me. Ethan's plea surged through her, breaking through the silence thickening like fog. Her instincts screamed at her to listen, but the curiosity was intoxicating, seductive in its brutality. What if she could find him? What if the answer was right there, wrapped up in the shadows? Abruptly, a surge of anger ignited inside her. You think I'll let you decide for me? She hissed, voice shaky but fierce. I'm the only one who can choose. With newfound resolve, her hand shot out to slam the lid shut, but just before she did, the shadows erupted into chaos. They howled, a deafening cacophony mixed with screams of horror and despair, drowning Ethan's image in a wave of darkness. The box vibrated violently in her hands as if it were alive, fighting against her will. It was as if the shadows themselves were clawing for freedom. Mom. No. Ethan's voice echoed, and the vibrations transformed into a thin scream that pierced through her mind. Her vision blurred as the room twisted, as though reality itself warped under the pressure of what lay contained within the box. She stumbled back, nearly losing her footing, the weight of centuries pressing against her soul. The shadows split like a curtain, revealing a glimpse of another world, one drenched in fog and sorrow, where silhouettes lurked in torment. Faces peeked out, twisted in anguish, mouths agape in silent screams. Suddenly, Ethan's voice shone through once more, clearer this time, you have to trust yourself. The fervent words sank deep into her, igniting a flicker of hope. But hope felt fragile, easily shattered by the looming dread that surrounded her. Enough. She screamed, making a final decision that echoed into the void around her. With a fierce resolve, Sarah pushed the lid down, shutting it with one desperate motion. A surge of energy exploded from the box, sending her crashing to the floor. The sounds of anguished wails pierced through her mind, the shadows writhing in feral fury, fighting against the confines that held them captive. And then, silence. An eerie calm retreated, as if the world itself held its breath. Trembling, Sarah looked up. The box lay motionless, the shadows retreating as though defeated, pulling back into the corners of her room. The weight on her chest eased, but she felt their eyes, cold and calculating, lurking, just waiting, but then there came a rustling sound from inside the box, a low, persistent scratching. Something was still alive within. Something that wouldn't rest. Her heart raced again, pounding violently against her ribcage. Had she made a grave mistake? With dread swirling in her gut, she leaned closer. The box emitted a low growl, promising that the echoes of the past were not so easily quelled. The scratching grew louder, clawing closer to the surface. What had she released? As the shadows curled back, gathering their strength, Sarah's breath quickened. She felt the darkness slithering back into her mind, an invitation to despair. The fight wasn't over, not yet. What had escaped? What dark secret lay in wait to unleash its fury upon the world? She was certain of one thing: she would be drawn back into the depths, whether she wanted to or not. A shudder passed through her as she wondered just how deep the darkness truly ran. And if it sought her, would it take Ethan too? The thought sent a fresh wave of terror coursing through her veins. What was yet to come, waiting to be uncovered in the chilling embrace of the night? The silence felt heavy, suffocating. Sarah's heart pounded furiously. She fought against the urge to flee. The shadows had retreated, but the knowledge of their lingering presence kept her on edge. Slowly, she stood, knees shaking. Each careful movement felt like a betrayal, a reminder of how terribly close she had come to losing everything. She glanced at the box on the floor, almost reluctant. It was an unassuming vessel that had contained such horror. But within it might lie the key to saving Ethan, to unlocking the eternal mystery surrounding Flight 1978. The scratching resumed, fierce and insistent. Taking a steadying breath, Sarah knelt down, hands trembling as she opened the box once more. A wisp of darkness erupted, coiling into the air before dissipating like smoke. Inside, the papers fluttered, whispering forgotten secrets as she carefully dug through them. There it was. Nestled among the old papers was a small key, a tarnished metal object engraved with strange symbols. An intuitive shiver surged through her. "Is this what I need?" she murmured, heart racing with anticipation. "Mom!" Ethan's voice burst into her thoughts, echoing through the dark recesses of her mind. "You're running out of time. I need you. Please." Resolutely, she pocketed the key and bolted toward the corridor leading back to the terminal. Each step carried the weight of her fears but also the flicker of hope. If that box had held the answers so far, maybe this key could lead her to Ethan. As she reached the terminal, her eyes darted around, searching for the familiar area where she last felt his presence, the darkened waiting room. Summoning every bit of courage, she forced open the heavy door. It creaked in protest, and a shroud of darkness rolled out, swirling around her ankles, hungry and waiting. "Ethan!" she cried out, the sound echoing through the eerie emptiness. But where was he? A child's laughter danced through the shadows, a tune that was both inviting and sinister. The laughter morphed into cries, circling, taunting her decision to step inside. The whispers intensified, a cacophony urging her to join the lost souls. "Don't let them in." Ethan's voice edged through the noise, strong and unwavering. Sarah clutched the key tightly, feeling its smooth metal bite into her palm. It had to unlock something here, something important. She approached the empty rows of seats where she had first discovered the doll, her instincts screaming. The dim fluorescent lights flickered above her, taunting. Then, she noticed something just past the waiting area. An old door stood ajar, beckoning her. Without hesitation, she strode forward, her heart thudding in her chest. As she reached for the doorknob, the atmosphere thickened, stinging her skin. "Do you really want to know?" a voice whispered from the shadows, wrapping around her with a chilling intimacy. "You could lose everything. Anything is better than losing my son." Sarah shouted, determination coursing through her veins. With that, she pushed the door open. It swung wide, revealing a dimly lit room, dimmed by lingering darkness that seemed to breathe. Swallowing her fears, she stepped into the unknown, the key heavy in her pocket. Inside, a dusty, forlorn circular table stood beneath a flickering light. An old box sat atop it, identical to the one from her childhood. "What?" she whispered, confusion mixing with an inkling of understanding. Suddenly, a hand grasped her shoulder. She whipped around, heart leaping into her throat. A figure emerged from the shadows, hauntingly familiar. It was the ghost of a woman, worn and sorrowful, her eyes pools of understanding and despair. "Sarah," she whispered, voice threaded with sadness, "you need to remember you cannot escape what you are." "Who are you?" Sarah breathed, bewildered. I am a piece of you, the figure replied softly. You've buried your past deep, but it is time to face it. Your son is the light, the hope, but you must confront the darkness within. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, memories crashing like waves against her mind. She had run from her past, the shadows of her childhood and the fears entangled within. But it wasn't just her path that stood at a crossroads, it was Ethan's, too. Use the key, the ghost urged, sadness etched into each word. Unlock the truth. Shaking but resolute, she grasped the key firmly, stepping toward the old box. What had it tunneled into her and her family for so many years ago? She knelt and inserted the key into the lock. It turned effortlessly, and with a deep breath, she opened the lid. Inside was a tangle of old photographs, frayed edges painted in memories of laughter and love, a family growing apart. Nestled within was Ethan's smiling face, clutched in playful moments, skipping stones and holding on to innocence. But the further she dug, the more somber the images grew. Her eyes widened as twisted memories sprang to life before her. Sarah gasped, overwhelmed. What should I do? She pleaded, glancing back at the woman, but she simply smiled. Accept it. Embrace the truth. Confront the darkness that seeks to consume you and your son. Forgive yourself, and rescue him from the shadows. With sudden clarity igniting her spirit, Sarah stood tall, determination blossoming within her chest. I will not lose my son, she declared, voice echoing fiercely through the despair. The darkness surged in response, whispering its relentless taunts, but she stood firm. The fear was palpable, but she possessed something greater. Love. She had the strength to resist and break the chains of the past. Ethan. Sarah screamed, breaking through the veil as light surged around her. The photographs glimmered, illuminating her surroundings, and with every second, the shadows withdrew, the light seeping through. I am coming. The cacophony that had once wrapped around her heart began to fade, and her thoughts settled into clarity. As the darkness receded, she sprinted back into the depths of the terminal, tracing the echoes of Ethan's laughter. There he was, waiting for her at another door, the path she once turned away from, leading back to life. Mom! He cried, face lighting up with hope. With everything within her, she reached for him, enveloping him in her embrace. In that moment, the shadows receded, the bond of love beamed brighter than any darkness, forever severing the chains that sought to link them to despair. As daylight broke through the terminal's windows, scattering the darkness, the once oppressive silence dissolved, allowing the hum of life to re-emerge, welcoming them back into reality. They had escaped, together. Together, we faced the world, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, filled with love and gratitude. They turned toward the emerging dawn, stepping forward hand in hand, ready to reclaim the life lost in shadows. This had been their fight, and against it all, they had emerged victorious. Make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support is everything. Don't hesitate, flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and thoughts about what has happened, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Go!